Hey Guardians, this is ChrisMe2 here. I'm starting this channel to look at some of the new stuff we're seeing in Destiny 2, and I want to give some of my first impressions on Season of the Drifter and all the new gear and lore it has to offer. I'll also be looking at future content and new expansions, comparing them all back to stuff in Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, of course. Alright, so for this video, let's get started with Gambit Prime. It's definitely the centerpiece of this new expansion, and I've got to say I already prefer it to Gambit a million times over. I guess my biggest problem with the original Gambit is that there were 3 rounds, and unless the game was evenly matched, you knew whether you were going to win or lose after one round. The matches took so long, and you had to sit through most of it knowing the outcome. Making Gambit only one round and making it higher stakes was a major improvement to the game. I like all the new dynamics in Gambit Prime too. Fighting the Primeval feels like a boss fight in a raid, because there's prep phases and damage phases, and it allows for strategic invasions to take out the enemy team during or after their damage phase, so you can heal the Primeval as much as you possibly can, and give your team as much of an advantage as possible. Getting the Primeval first doesn't carry as much weight as it used to in Gambit, and winning seems possible even when you're really far behind. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the specific roles and armor sets like Collector and Reaper, but after reading some of the perks, I think it's going to allow for some really interesting combinations. Even the elite Guardian Fire teams won't just have a player wearing each set. You'll see different combinations of Invaders, Reapers, Collectors, and there'll even be different combinations of individual Guardians. Like, I could probably have a Tier 3 Collector helmet on so I could get its first perk, and then the rest of my armor could be Reaper armor. It's exactly like some of the old raid armor that we saw not only in Leviathan, but also Vault of Glass in some of the older raids, where you get perks specific to the activity. But this is so much better because you have different combinations and you can make each game different, depending on your loadout, depending on your armor. It'll also be nice when we all have the Tier 3 sets, and we'll be able to play the roles and figure out who's doing what before the game even starts, as opposed to just being thrown into a game and trying to scramble to figure out who's invading and who's doing what, and it all just kind of falls apart in the middle. I touched on a lot of the pros that I see in Gambit Prime, but there are definitely some cons that need some talking about. The obvious problem I have with any competitive multiplayer, in Destiny and in other games, is struggling to try and play match-made matches. I've encountered so many fire teams before and clan fire teams that decimate any match-made team, regardless of how good some of the individual players may be. Now, on the other hand, I do understand why Destiny is emphasizing networking and being in a clan and why all of that's important, but it sucks when you just want to quickly hop on and play a match, or if any of your friends aren't online or clan members and you're just stuck playing by yourself. Another issue I have with Gambit Prime, and this is an issue I've had with Destiny as a whole for a while, is that eventually a dominant strategy will form. People are going to figure out which weapons work the best, which supers work the best, which combinations of armor work the best. And that's all you're ever going to see people running. I mean, you see it in raids, like when Whisper became the must-have gun for the final phase of Scourge of the Past. And that's just the most recent example. Almost every raid that you do, present and past, has a specific loadout that works the best. And you also see it in the Crucible, like back in Destiny 1 when everyone and their mom was running Thorn, and before they nerfed it, of course. And on that note, that's also a fear I have for the upcoming Thorn quest. I don't want it to be as OP as it was in its prime, because I don't want everyone running it and it just kind of being the must-have gun for Crucible. But at the same time, I do want to use it and have fun using it, so I don't want it to be too watered down. That's enough about Gambit Prime, though. Let's talk about the Reckoning a bit. I'll be honest, when I first played Tier 1, I was kinda disappointed. It seemed like the typical Destiny ad clear and boss fight without any real dynamics. Tier 1 reminds me too much of things we had in Destiny 1, like the Court of Oryx on the Dreadnought and Archon's Forge in the Plague Lands. But playing Tier 2 made up for the first tier in a lot of ways. The bridge was such a cool transition between the two tiers, and it's so intense and fast-paced. With Guardians popping their supers left and right, with Warlock wells and Titan walls all over the place. And then when you cross the bridge and get into the Night Room, I think the dynamics are really cool, and reflect the damage phase structure we see in Gambit Prime. One qualm I do have with the Knights is that they're a one-hit kill if you're standing right at their feet. Now, we definitely have seen this with big bosses before, but these Knights move pretty fast and have the ability to teleport from place to place. I do think, though, that it will be solved with higher light levels as it was in the Ascendant challenges in the Dreaming City. I remember those challenges used to be so hard at first, and now they're basically nothing. Another challenge of killing bosses in the Reckoning is that they are super tanky. So everyone in your fire team has to be putting out as much DPS as possible or you won't get very far. You also almost need a Well of Radiance and some tethers for the Knights and for the Reckoning in general. But again, once we're all 700 light, this will probably be easy and we'll be able to melt the Knights in seconds. I'm also really excited to see what Tier 3 looks like and how we'll have to get there. Whether it'll be another bridge or some other kind of fast-paced challenge in between the two tiers. And I'm also eager to see what's in the actual 3rd tier, what some of those dynamics will be. Because we saw a huge jump from difficulty in Tier 1 to Tier 2, so I hope that Tier 3 is even harder. And considering that it's 690 light, it will continue to be difficult even when we're 700. I also think that the Reckoning was set at the perfect difficulty level right off the bat, which Destiny has rarely been able to do successfully. As recently as the Black Armory, the first time we tried to ignite the Valindar Forge, it was almost impossible to get everything done in the time, because the light requirement was 615 and we were all at 600. Tier 1 of the Reckoning is set at 650, and so everyone who was at 650 has access to it right away. And even those of us who started at 640 because we had to use the level up quests, you can still get to 650 pretty quickly. It took a couple of tries to learn the dynamics and how to beat all the tiers, but it wasn't too bad. I personally think it's the perfect balance between easy and hard, where you're not necessarily bored and just mindlessly waltzing through it like it's a story mission, but at the same time you don't have to look up a walkthrough or get frustrated not knowing what to do with the raid. Overall though, I do like the Reckoning a lot, and I'm looking forward to playing Tier 3 and grinding for all the different armor sets. The last thing I wanted to touch on in today's video is the new lore we're being exposed to with the conflict between the Drifter and the Vanguard. All the messages we've received from Honor and her involvement with the Praxic Fire, and all the messages she's sending us warning about the Drifter makes me excited for the split quest lines and the different possibilities moving forward. I also like that we're only receiving messages from Honor while the Drifter is still kind of keeping all of his plans close to his chest and being super secretive like we're used to. It's almost as if Bungie is coaxing some of us to siding with the Vanguard, since they know so many of us will probably side with the Drifter anyway. I personally don't care what Honor says, I'm with the Drifter on this one. After how the Vanguard reacted to Cade's death, I just don't think I can trust them anymore. And besides, fighting the power is always the move. I will definitely do the Vanguard questline on either my Warlock or my Titan, just to see what it's like and to get the lore book, of course. This is the first time in Destiny that they're complicating the storyline in any way. We've always had a one-track story, and it's the first time since Forsaken where we're actually given a choice. Now, that may just have been a blackout with a gunshot that left some ambiguity as to who actually shot Uldren, either us or Petra, but this is an actual decision that will hopefully affect the gameplay in a major way, even outside of the quests. And it's a public announcement that we get to make to the other Guardians. My one concern with this, though, is that Bungie falls into sort of Mass Effect 3 conundrum, where none of the choices that we make actually matter, and then there's one ending for all the pathways, regardless of what you chose during the course of the game. But at the same time, I know that that's kind of unrealistic to expect from them, especially in an MMO like this, to make two essentially different games. Because then it would either take twice as long for them to continue making the good content they're making now, or they're going to release content that's half as good at the same speed, and we definitely don't want either of those things. So all things considered, the split questline is probably the best compromise, and I'm honestly okay with that. I'm excited to see what the two questlines are like. And I honestly wouldn't want Destiny to become a choose-your-own-adventure game anyway. Alright, that's it from me, Guardians. That's all I had. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. If you agree or disagree with anything I said, or if you have suggestions for something else you'd like to hear me talk about, make sure to leave a comment and I'll respond as soon as I can. And I'd love to hear what you guys want to hear me talk about or give my opinion on. And of course, if you want to hear more from me, go ahead and slap that subscribe button. Fly fast, fly safe. This is Chris Me Too, signing off.